Old growth forests are mature ecosystems that where any previous damage has become negligible over time. They're essentially free of human impact. These forests are categorized by an overstory of over mature trees, many of which are in the process of dying. But because of that, they provide really important habitats for species through the presence of dead logs and hollow trees. Other species can survive in them, such as mushrooms, but all around they're just really important for an ecosystem because of how long surviving they are. These features are not just remnants of the past, but also vital components of the forest's ongoing life cycle. So in addition to their ecological importance, old growth forests hold a significant aesthetic, cultural, and conservation value. They are places of natural beauty, so we often make them nature preserves, and also historical significance, which is why we often preserve them. Their conservation is looking from beyond a biological perspective. It is extremely important for biodiversity, but they also often have a cultural and natural heritage that they represent, which is why their preservation is so incredibly important. Managing old growth forests requires a lot of careful planning and specific practices because of how dependent they are on not having human impacts, since they're so long surviving. The species which inhabit them are so specifically evolved to live within them that any changes can have major effects. One such thing that humans do is prescribed burning, particularly in Australia. Basically, that just maintains the health of these ecosystems because it reduces the risk of uncontrolled wildfires by promoting the growth of native species. It prevents those invasive species from coming in and destroying these really rich environments. Another one is just the direct control of native species or invasive species. Basically, doing so just prevents non-native species from, and specifically plants, which might be able to outgrow the long-lasting native species, from disrupting the balance of the forest and all of the animals that depend on these native trees. Another one, designated harvest planning, ensures that any resource extraction is done sustainably. And then finally, conservation policies are generally in place in these old growth forests to protect them so that they're long lasting and don't fall under the pressures of climate change and so forth. As you can hopefully see, a lot of work goes into maintaining these ecosystems, which is why it's really important that we use some of the tools we've learned to be able to identify them. We want to be able to know what makes an old growth forest so that we're able to conserve them in the long run. The same goes for our next ecosystem, which is productive soils. While we do gain different things from them, they're also really important to be able to recognize because they have certain benefits or importance to humans, which is why we need them to survive and why it's important to identify them. So productive soils are a really vital component of healthy ecosystems and agriculture because they support plant growth because of how nutrient dense they are. They aid in decomposition because of what they contain, and they also resist erosion because they've been developed to do so. So these soils are rich in grains, minerals, and even decaying organic matter, and all of these contribute together to its fertility and ability to sustain heaps of diverse plant life. So the structure of productive soils basically allows them to retain moisture and nutrients a lot longer compared to normal soils, such as even man-made soils, which in turn creates an ideal environment for plants to thrive and survive. This in turn supports the broader ecosystem by promoting biodiversity and enabling the natural processes of decomposition and nutrient cycling. So you can imagine that if we were to interrupt this process, it would have devastating effects because it is reliant on sort of a acyclic nature. These resources are recycled time and time again, and by taking them, they're not able to be recycled and the ecosystem will ultimately decay. So maintaining these productive soils requires a whole heap of management practices because of all their benefits for humanity. One key strategy is the reduction of overgrazing or overuse of the soil so that it's able to retain all of this nutrients that allows it to support plant life. If we were to overuse it, the soil would become compact and basically just lose its ability to support life. Soil erosion prevention strategies are also essential. They basically just protect the soil from being washed away by wind or water, which would in turn deplete its nutrients and structure. Again, using appropriate crops that are well suited to the soil type, so ones that are naturally occurring nearby or similar or built to be within this type of soil, all come together to help to maintain soil health and productivity. The use of appropriate land machinery is another important factor. Again, it just minimizes soil compaction and preserves the soil's natural structure. As you can imagine, the potential for productive soil to support plant life makes them really sought after by humans who use them for agriculture. We obviously want to use these productive soils in order to create a bunch of crops that we can in turn use. So using a couple of the techniques we just described is really important in this case because if we have no set way to determine what a productive soil is, how are we going to use it? So again, the same applies as we previously saw, just different benefits. The final ecosystem I want to cover are coral reefs. These are, well, there's a good chance you've probably heard of them before. We live in Queensland. We have the Great Barrier Reef, which is actually the biggest of this ecosystem type that we can observe in nature. And it's right on our doorstep, conveniently. I don't know if anyone's seen it before or visited it. What makes them so amazing, though, is just really how diverse they are, even compared to every other ecosystem. If you've seen them up close, you'll know that they're not only really beautiful, but they also play a really crucial role in maintaining marine diversity. So coral reefs actually provide essential habitats for countless marine species by offering shelter, breeding grounds, and food sources for thousands of animals. Beyond their ecological importance, coral reefs serve as natural barriers by protecting coastlines from wave damage and reducing the impact of storms and erosion on coastal communities. Basically, they're able to prevent severe waves from coming to shore by acting as a physical barrier. This protective function is really invaluable, particularly in regions that are prone to tropical storms and rising sea levels. And I know I'm getting off track here, but we actually replicate them and surround communities with them as a means of our own wave damage protection artificially. That's how incredible they are. They naturally evolved to be that good at it. Outside their ecological function, coral reefs contribute significantly to the economy through tourism and fishing. As you'll know probably in Queensland, a lot of our major source of income in tourism is from the Great Barrier Reef. So many coastal communities and Queensland relies on the income generated from tourists who visit them and the abundance of life that they support. So as you may know, these ecosystems in particular are really dwindling in numbers. To preserve them, there's a lot of management strategies that are being employed. Zoning plans are implemented to designate specific sites for conservation, which ensures that the most sensitive parts of the reef are protected from human activities that could potentially cause them damage. Like we saw with mature old forests, invasive species or elimination of invasive species is also very common. These species can often disrupt the delicate balance of reef ecosystems. You may have seen videos of sea urchins that completely devastate ecosystems by eating all the coral. And that is a very common example that we see today. Finally, the conservation and recreational use of policies that are put in place to regulate activities like tourism and fishing help us to prevent overexerting them. There are heaps of measures in place, so if you're interested, I would absolutely recommend doing some extra reading. Obviously, you can see I'm getting a little off track because this is an interesting topic. So while I would like to cover it today, we don't have the time to go in as much depth as I would like. Instead, I'd like you to move on, and take a look at how we use our classification tools like quadrants, zonation, and transects actually in practice.